Okay, so we want to talk about section 2 of chapter 6, uh, which is going to have some stuff that you should already know. We're just going to apply it to our we're just going to apply it to our file IO. So, and then we're going to talk about a little more stuff in there. So let me move on. Yeah, we talked about some of the stuff on 6.1. We talked about the classes and objects. We're going to do some activities on these things. And we talked about how to open the file, how to close the file, how to check for the fail. And we're going to go talk more about it in our discussion today. Member function, catching errors, fail. I'm hoping that you guys have read some stuff. I'm not expecting you to read the whole book or the whole chapter, but I'm expecting you guys to do some reading before you come to the class each time. Okay, so we're starting with this one. I want to get on this section because you're going to need it to do your homework and lab. So we're going to be talking about two things. One is how do we read the entire file? And the other one is when we're writing stuff, how do we format it? So you already did some of this formatting on your, what was it, chapter 3 or so, that you learn how to do the formatting. This is something that you guys did already. So if you remember it, we did these three things that if I wanted to format my output, first I have to do fix. Why do I do fix?
So you can have the point, the decimal point.
I was talking to somebody yesterday and she said that she visited the class that almost 100% of the students were showing up with the camera on. And I said, okay, what did that instructor do? I need to learn how to do that. And I need more response. Let me see. Are you guys responding in the text somewhere? I need you guys be looking at this as a regular class. So get up, get ready, come in here. Where is my chat? Chat, 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 chat. Can somebody post something on the chat? I cannot find my chat. Chat, here it is. Okay, got it. Okay, so you can answer, say something, and we have about 9 people, 10 including me in the class. I appreciate for you guys waking up this early to be in this class, but let's make it a little more interactive instead of me talking all the time. So I need you guys either type it in chat. My preferred way is to say something. Don't be shy about it. If you're wrong, you're wrong. That's okay. But I just want you guys to think and talk as much as possible. So oh, I know Jose answered this. Anybody else has an answer for why do we use fixed? Come on, guys. We need to get this over with. We don't want to spend too much time on this. Rosa, what do you think?
To identify fixed point notation.
Versus what?
iOS.
So if I don't do this fixed, my numbers are going to be shown as what? The question is for the whole class. So if I don't put fixed,
Scientific notation.
it's going to be scientific notation. So if I don't, the default is scientific notation. That's in math, you're thinking about 10 to the power of something. So you would say instead of 2500, you would say 2.5. So instead of 2500, in the scientific notation, you would say 2.5 times 10 to the power of what?
3.
3. Come on, you guys are having background in the math. So if I don't put it as a fix, it's going to show it in scientific notation. Of course, in C++, we don't put the 10, they put E. So this would be shown as 2.5 E3, something like that. So that would be our C++ if I don't put a fix. So the next one is talking about the show point. Who can tell me what this show point means?
Make sure that there's a decimal point.
So we're going to show the decimal point. So if I have 2500, if I don't say show point, it's not going to show the decimal point. So if I say show point 2500, it's going to show as 2500.0. And then the last one is precision. So precision 2 means what?
There are 2 numbers.
2 decimal
2
points.
digits. Yeah.
So if I do this to my 2500, what is my 2500 is going to look like if I do all these 3 before I print a number which is 2500? What is my 2500 is going to look like?
2500.00.
2500.00. Okay. I would like to find a way to create an environment that everybody can talk. And I would like to create an environment that you look at this as your classroom. So you would get up in the morning and you dress up to go to your classroom. So I hope that we can achieve this, not only for this class, for all your classes. That way you would see it as a classroom. So applying these things to the file, remember, we're going to create an object out of a class. So our art, what is the class for our output file? Remember, the class is what we need to create an object. If I don't have an object, I cannot use it.
OF
So,
stream.
OF stream, and then I'm going to be calling it something. I can call it anything I want. So if somebody's going to have a child, they're going to call the child anything they want. So in this case, our name is going to be stream. So if I have auto stream, which if we want to make it to the convention that we are using in this book, it should be like this. So the auto stream is my object of my file. So that means I open the file for writing. So the difference between opening for reading, opening for writing, and that's what we talked about in the activity, that if you open a file for writing, if it doesn't exist, it's going to create it. So that's a big difference between those two.
Professor.
Yes.
So in the book, they say that you can open the file in the same line that you create the object. Is that, do you have anything to say about that? Like for example, OF stream, outstream parentheses file name.
Yeah, that's called constructors, and you can do that. I have a feeling that's going to be a little confusing for some students, but that's the option that you have, and you can do it. When we get to classes, if we get to classes, chapter 10, I hope that we're going to have some time to look at it at least. There is something called constructor. That means when you are building your object, you can execute something. It's a function that's called. So what do we do when we're building our object? So for example, I might have a default value for the color of my car. So when I'm building it, I can do that. So while you're building your object, which is this one, then you can create a constructor for it. But I think it's going to be a little confusing especially for the people who just coming in with no coding. But you decide you want to use it, that's fine. I'm not going to ask the class to do it.
I see.
Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate that. So we are going to be doing the same thing that we did with the C out, but remember what we're doing in this chapter, we are replacing our C out with the name of our OF stream. So we just, this is the way I'm used to it. So I'm going to take the C out, I'm going to replace it with out stream. So that's basically what we are doing in this chapter. We are used to the C in, C out. We're going to replace our C ins with the in stream and then or in file or whatever we're going to call it, and then the out stream for the output file. Any questions in this area? So we talked about this already. This is what is going to happen if I don't do my numbers in fixed format. It's going to be in the scientific format. That's the way C++ is. If it was up to me, I would do it the other way around, but that's the way it is. So if I have a number like this and I do precision 2, it's going to make it to what?
0.00.
Yeah, so it's going to change it to, yeah.
Or wait,
Yeah, actually, this is not, this is for this one here.
oh,
So I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want you read about it. You should know these things already. I'm not going to talk more about it. I'm just going to let it go. So one thing that we're going to be doing is we have some ways of doing spacing. So remember what I said on Monday, that if you want to write to a file and you think that your file is going to be read by a person, you want to organize the stuff in there. So if I have lots of data and I just put them right after each other, the program doesn't care. You put it in one line, you put it in multiple lines, you split it between lines. Your program is going to be looking for a space and then it's going to read the next one. That's the way it's going to do. But for human, we want to see it in the columns. So if I put all the grades in a file, the computer doesn't care which order is. It's going to read the first 5 and then the next 5 and the next 5 and so on. But if a human is looking at that data, we want to have it in columns. We want to have it in order. It says, okay, this is the test 1, this is the test 2, this is the assignment 1, this is assignment 2. And instead of having all the numbers, at least we know what columns do we have. So when we want to put things in columns, we have some tools that we can use. And one of those tools is called the width. So we can define the width of what do we want. Okay, so in this case, we are defining the width of 4. So 4 means I'm going to have total of 4 spaces for my output or whatever you want. So if I put 7, so there is some default things that we have, and there is some that we can adjust it. Even the default one we can change. So when we are writing stuff, generally our string or characters are left justified and our numbers are right justified. So what that means, what? If I print my name, it's going to be left justified. If I print my age, it's going to be right justified. Now, if I put the things right after each other, what's going to happen? Everything is going to be connected to each other. So it's going to be Jamal 60. And that's kind of hard to read. We want to put some spaces between them. So that's where we're going to be using the width. So to separate, to put the spaces in there. Now, we do have a way to make things left justify and right justify if you want to. So if I want to create something like this, Joe 25, Suzanne 23 or so. So if we have this in a file, it would be much easier to create columns for them. So they would have in the columns. And of course, I can potentially put a header for the column and that we practice on that next week. So that's the goal here. So now we're going to be calling width. So if I call the width, I gotta know what's the maximum I'm gonna have, and then add some spaces for extra space that I want. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jamal is 5 character, but that's not gonna help me. I gotta know or think about what is the longest name I'm gonna have. And then, well, there are some people that say 16, some people say 24, and then you put that and plus one or two more spaces to make it in columns. Now, before we spend more time on that one, let's look at when we say width 4, it says that I'm going to have 4 spaces. So I'm going to have 4 spaces. Now, if I put 7, the number is usually right justified. So it's going to have a 7 and 3 spaces. Okay, so that is going to help me if I want to push my number to the right. If I decide that I want to use iOS left, my number is going to go to the left. And if I didn't have that width for my name, then they would get stuck together. So that's the whole idea of this, to how to figure this out. Are we clear about the width?
How would we format iOS left? Like putting it in the program?
Yeah, we're going to see it right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
when you do it, then you put it in there too. Yeah. So the bottom line here is when you do this, it does not cut your number. It just put it that much space. So if your number or whatever you have is more than its width, it's just going to show it. So if I had a name that's longer than what I expected, so let's say I fixed the name for 16 and I had somebody's name 18 character, it's not going to cut it. It's just going to display 18 characters. So one line is going to be shifted. So that's what this is. It's not going to cut it. It's just going to display using this number. But if what I have is larger than this number, it's not going to cut it. It's just going to do it in there. So we have a SetF. So we could use the SetF to do these things. And that's where you're going to do your iOS left and right and those kind of things. So you do it just like that. So you do the SetF for the flag and you put your iOS over there. So if you want to make it left or right, you can do it over there. Now, the problem with the, okay, so if I set F, if I use the set F, the problem with that is it's going to set my output from that point on to the rest of my output. So that means all of them is going to be like that. So if I say fixed or show pause is it's going to show the positive sign. If the number is positive, it's going to show plus, and if it's negative, it's going to show negative. So if I do that, and then I say, you know what, from this point on, I don't want to do it anymore. So there is a flag called onset. So if I set it, and remember, you do this in your output function only. You don't do it in your main. You do it in output functions only. You might want to do it in certain portion, not other portion. So if you set it, it's going to happen to everything from that point on. And if you change your mind or you decide you don't want to do this anymore, you do the unset from that point on. So we set show pause from certain data. When we get to this point, we're going to change it. So from this point on, it's not going to show it. So as I said, this SetF is going to apply to everything that I have. And then that's going to cause some problem because sometimes I don't want to apply to everything. I just want to apply to one or two or different ones. So there is going to come up something called manipulator. And manipulators is going to be using the insertion operator, and it's only going to apply to the next one. It doesn't apply to everything from that point on. So if I did the width, it would apply to everything from that point on. But if I use the manipulator for the width, which is like this, set W, this set W, which is called manipulator, is going to be used only for the next one. It doesn't apply to everything. It's a little more typing, of course, but on the other side of it is we don't have to worry about it. If I have something that's going to be 6, something is going to be 4, something is going to be 5. Remember, the SetF is going to apply to everything from that point on. The manipulator, excuse me, is going to apply to the next one. So if I have set W4, I am giving 4 spaces for my 10. Remember, I haven't done anything to the start, so the start is going to be printing, and it's going to stop right here. And now, when we say set W4, that means I have 4 spaces from here to here. And so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. What's going to happen if I have set W4 and I have a number of 25, 65, 89? What's going to happen to that one? Somebody beside the people who already talked, to please talk. Should I start giving points to the people who talk? Maybe I should do that, huh? I
Yeah,
give you some
definitely.
point if you talk. I give you some point if you have your camera on. I give you some points to be nice to me. Who else do we have in the class that didn't talk? What's going to happen if instead of 10, I would have this number? Should I call on you guys? I don't want to call on people. Who is this? I have somebody with the semicolon, colon. I need to identify that person because I want to be sure it's not the Zoom issue. Can you identify yourself? Otherwise, I have to get you out of the class. Okay, so Sean Yang, what's going to happen if I have a number that's higher than 4?
Would it just print the number normally?
So right now, if I had 10, it would give me 4 spaces. But this one has 6, so what's going to happen is going to extend itself to the space of the other one. So basically, it's going to push everything to the right. So everything is going to be shifted to the right. Any questions so far? So something is missing over here. What is missing in this statement?
20.
Good. So we're missing 20. This 20 is not here. Where is it supposed to go? Where is the 20 supposed to go?
Between the SetF 4 and SetF 6.
Very good. Thank you. So the 20 is supposed to be right there. It's missing. So 10 is going to have 4. So we're going to have 4 for 10. 20 is going to be 4. So from here to here is going to be 4. So 30 is 6. That means from here to here is 6 spaces. That means I have 4 spaces plus these 2. So we are creating this generally for creating things in the column format. And that's what we are doing. Any questions on this?
How do you know when you reach the end of the screen or the end of the line?
Well,
So for
these are the
example,
things that you have to sit down and calculate. So generally one line is 80 characters. So again, these are the file. And in your file, you can put very, very long line. The question is, if the user want to look at it, it's going to be easy to read or not. So your typical line is about 80 character line long. So when you print these things, and it's a little bit of the practice also. So you print it and say, that doesn't look good, or you print it and then it's going to shift and those kind of things. So that's what you're going to do, some practice on it. But in general, we are taking 80 character per line.
okay.
So if we want to make things, so if I do the SetF, it's going to set that one from that point on. Now we have a manipulator that's called set precision. Remember, if I use the SetF one, if I did it in that format, then it would set it for everything from that point on. But if I use the manipulator, it's only going to happen to the next one. So this one, it's only going to happen to what's coming after it. That's it. So it's going to apply to this, not this one. Producer. Well, I guess this manipulator does the same task as the member function. Okay, so I guess it's not acting like a manipulator. It is just going to apply it to everything. So I guess it's the same thing as the manipulator. I was wrong on that one. So if I'm using any manipulator, I need the pound include for it. I need the using namespace for it. Okay, this is the part that I want to spend some time on it, and I want you guys to pay attention to it because it's very, very important. Remember what we said after chapter 5, we want to write everything in functions. So our goal, it's going to be a little tricky for this chapter. So the goal is to make everything in functions. Is it going to happen all the time? Maybe not in this chapter. We are just learning stuff. So we can bounce things around. But the bottom line is, if I am calling a function, if I'm creating a function, I want to pass my files to the function. My file is always passed by reference. Our file is not passed. So if I have 5 million record, I'm not going to make a copy of 5 million record and send it to my function. Remember, call by value is going to make a copy of whatever we have before it's sending it in. So call by reference is just going to copy the address of a file and it's going to send it. So if I have a file in my hard drive and it's a huge file, I'm not sending the whole file. I am just going to send the address of the beginning of the file, which is generally 4 bytes. It's not going to be that big, to the function. So every time you're calling a function, you're always going to be passing your IF and OF stream by reference. So that's the only way you're going to do it. So that's one way, one thing. So when we are reading a file, generally we want to read everything all the way to the end of the file. So we want to read all the data in the file to the end of the file. So we will look at a character called EOF. So EOF is going to be a character in at the end of my file. We don't see it, but remember in the computer, everything is right after each other. So how does the computer know that this file is finished and the other one starts? Because everything is right after each other. Then it's going to have a character. It's called end of the file character. We're going to see it if we want to check just for the character. But one way to be sure that we are not going to go to the next one is to use this operator. And this one automatically, when it sees this one, is going to stop. So if I do write something like, and this is my favorite way of doing it. So if I say while in stream number, I'm going to be reading one number at a time. I'm going to be reading one number at a time. And I'm going to do something with the number. Let's say I want to add it to my sum. So I have a while number. I'm going to say sum plus equal number. So I'm reading number from the file. I'm adding it to my sum. I have to be sure my sum starts with 0 before my while loop somewhere. Otherwise, this is not going to work properly. So I am going to have my sum equal 0. I'm going to read the number from the file. I'm going to add it to my sum. So every time I go through this loop, it's going to start from the top of my file. It's going to read a number. It's going to add it. It's going to read another number. It's going to read another number. And it's going to go all the way through the file. At the end of the file, it's going to stop. I can potentially put more than one thing in here. And I can put more stuff in here. So let's say that I want to read a number and a name. So I can say in a stream number, and inside of my loop say in a stream name as a string. So those are the things that we got to spend some time on it. Please start early because there's going to be a lot of confusion in this chapter. We want to be sure that we get things done correctly. So one way of going through the file is to do this one in a while loop. And we generally want to use the while loop, not the for statement, because most of the time the size of the file is going to change. So we're going to have 30 students, then we're going to have 20 students, then we're going to have 35 students. So it's not fixed all the time. So I cannot use the for loop. If I use for loop for 30 and then I have less than 30, then we're going to have a problem. So a typical way of reading a file is through the while loop. So we're going to write a while loop to stop whenever, and we can count it if I want to count to see how many numbers do I have. I'm going to do count plus plus. Of course, I start my count with 0. That way I know how many numbers do I have. So remember, every time I go through this loop, it's going to read one number for me. Questions on what we are talking about right now?
I have a question.
Sure.
So the in string we're taking depend on what type of the data is.
Correct.
Okay.
So
And if it's a number, so it is separated by space.
right. This extraction operator is going to be going over the spaces, tabs, and a new line. So in next here is a double. So in this file, we are expecting a bunch of doubles. Okay. So this one, just like you're seeing, let's say that I have numbers like this: 25.0, 35.25, 30.2. If I have it this way, or I have it 25, 32, 25, 32, or if I have 25, 35, 25, 30.2, from this point of view, it doesn't make any difference because I have data. So what happens is it's going to read my first number. It's going to stop right here. And then it's going to skip any kind of a white spaces, including the return value. Then it's going to go read the next one. And it's going to stop right here. And then it's going to skip over the white spaces, and it's going to read the next one. So in this case, my white space is a new line. So it's going to read this. It's going to stop over here. It's going to go over the new line. It's going to read this. It's going to stop right here. And then it's going to go over the new line. It's going to read this one. It's going to stop right here. And then it's going to see the end of the file. So just like you're seeing, this operator is going to look or basically skip over space, tab, new line to get to the next value. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Professor. So if for some reason there's like a character in the middle of the sequence, like a random character like A, it would just kind of meet an error, or
Okay, we're gonna deal with that in the next section, the character IO.
oh, okay.
But so let's talk about it. That what about if instead of the number, I had a name and a number? So let's say that I had a name and a number, and a name and a number. So if I have it in that format, what I want to do is I want to read a name and then I want to read the number. So I can do it two ways. One is I change this next to be a string, and then read the number inside here, or I can read both of them right after each other. So I would create a string, and we're going to talk more about this next week. So I'm going to create a string for the name. I'm going to create a double for my number. And then I'm going to say, while I can do it two ways. While in a stream name, and then inside my while loop, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with the number. So I read a name, I read a number, I read a name, I read a number, I read a name, I read a number. So I can do it this way, or I can even do it this way. So we're going to spend more of these things next week to do these kind of things. The bottom line is, if I put it inside the while loop, it's going to read the whole file and it's going to stop at the end of the file. So this format is expecting to have a name, number, name, number, name, number. So we talk more about this next week.
I see.
But for the character, if I'm expecting a number and I see a character, that's the next section, and we're going to spend some time on that. For now, you're assuming that if I'm reading number, everything is a number in my file.
Okay.
Any other questions? So this is an example that you might want to go over it. I want to stop talking and we're going to do some activities together. So remember, when we're doing the SetFs, those are going to be inside my output function. So this function is going to it's going to read this file and it's going to format it like this. If we don't do any cout, if I'm reading from a file and writing to a file, I don't see anything on my screen. So I have to open my output file. Remember, you can open your output file in your IDE. So let's say I'm using the code blocks. I can open my output file in my IDE. So that's something that we can do. Or you can open it up. These are text file. So if I don't have any cout, I don't see anything on the screen. But if I have a cout, I see something in the screen. So in this case, it does it 2 times. So in this case, it does it 2 times. One is writing to a file, and the other one is writing it to the screen. Generally, we don't do this. We do either or, but this is what just want to tell you that if you are writing to a file, you're not going to see anything on the screen. So any questions so far? Remember, the file that we are using is a text file. So if I want to create a new file to use it for my input, I'm going to be using some kind of a text editor. In PC is called the Notepad. In Mac, I think it's called the text edit or something like that. So if you want to create your input file from scratch, you have to use the text editor to create it. I think I put most of the files, but sometimes you have to create your own file. So that's for this one. These are some character manipulation. So I can change my character to uppercase. I can change it to lowercase. I can check it to see if it's upper, if it's an alpha, it's a space. I didn't know we're talking about this over here. I'm going to get back to this next week to talk more detail about it. So we're going to talk more about these things, but it's in there when you read it, when you're going to find it. Any questions about this?